Hello everyone, this is Chris Jamel at Exiton Interactive, and by the time that we're done with this video we will have the most beautiful addition to our user interface so far. But just to remind us what we're going for, or going towards, at least in this video, so if I have validation and I'm ready to send, if I hit send, I have this screen that animates down, has some artwork, and has this check mark that animates, and so basically that's what I call a send screen, and that is what we're going to shoot for, creating, at least in this video, creating it and getting it to animate down is our goal. So if you look here in where we're going to end up, I'm going to have this nice gray screen that will animate down and then go back up when the user hits the send button. It's actually going back up after the server returns a response. So as usual, I'd like to remind you that you can find a link to the article for this video in the description below. And let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to modify the pages that we already are using for the login and register. So first thing, let me open up login. What I want to do basically is just remove this extra H1 tag. We don't need those anymore. So we'll open up both the login.cshtml and the register.cshtml files. And like I said, delete those. We're also going to modify the styling just a little bit. So what I want is to have the login or the authenticator component to be in the center of the screen. So it'll be centered on the screen. So let's take care of that. And let's see if we go to the styles, so the SAS, and we go to the account authenticator.site.scss file. And we're not going to need separate styling for each, so we're just going to combine them up here. Like I said, we've deleted the H1, so we'll just get rid of that. And for both of them, what I'm going to do is set the min height to 100 VH, so 100 vertical. We'll set the display to flex direction to column, and let's see, justify content to center. Save that. Go back to the browser, and I think, yeah, it's not, let me rebuild here. Go back to the browser again, refresh here. Alright, so there we go. Connected again, and you can see that it is indeed centered on the screen. That takes care of that part. Let me go ahead and close those three. I think that's the last time we'll need them. Alright, so in order to, so previously, if we look in our components file, if we look at the template, it's possible at the end, I don't know whether I'll decide to do it or not, but we have this mix-in that we're calling for a form control group. That's probably would be better to be its own component, so it'd be a child component, and we would have just instantiate all of those. But right now we've chosen to use just basically have a mix-in and have all of the logic for them inside of the authenticator component class. But we are going to take the approach of adding in a new child component for the send screen, so at least we know how to do it. So the first thing that we're going to do is add in, we're going to click on the authenticator folder, choose add new item, and we are going to add in, I guess, the pug first. So it's we'll just use it as a text file, and send, we're going to call it send-screen.component.pug. We're going to make it basically the simplest we can at the moment, so we'll just give it a div with a class of sendScreen. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to right click on the authenticator folder, choose add new item, and this time we're going to do the styling. So we'll need a send-screen.component.scss. Inside of there, we are going to do what we've done previously. We're going to import our Bourbon Neat file We're also going to import the variables just because I'll use a color from it. And now let's style the send screen a little bit. So we'll say class of send screen. And what I want is to have the send screen start above the authenticator UI. So we'll put transform, translate, and I want it to be 0 on the X and minus 100% in the Y. Now we'll use a mix-in from Bourbon that I'm not sure why all of a sudden I remembered it does exist. But what I want to do is I'm going to set the position for this send screen to absolute. And then I want to set the top, right, bottom, and left to 0. And I'm going to change the background color to light gray. Save that. And of course, last but not least, we actually need the Typescript file. Again, send-screen.component.ts. And of course, we need to import, and that's from Angular/core. And we need the component. And of course, it doesn't exist if you don't do it right. So we need the component decorator. Next, we'll use that. So at component and pass in the object. And for this, we'll have a selector. I have a feeling of telling me I've done something wrong, but looks okay. Selector of, we'll call it send screen. Let me actually make the class here. So export class send screen component. We'll leave it like that for now. Oh, comment. What's a comment? There we go. And so what we want is the template. Yep. And again, require, and we will have send screen dot component dot pug, and we want styles, and get parentheses here, require, and that's going to be same / send screen dot component dot SCSS. And that should do it for all that we need, at least for the moment. So now we have the class file, the template, and the styles. And now we need to include that so that we can include it in our module so that we can use it within the authenticator.component.pug, so inside the authenticator's template. So if we remember how we do that, we're going to go back to the app folder. And we have this file called account-authenticator.site.ts, which is where we define the authenticator module. So what we need is to import. Let's come down here. So we import from the same basic location, components /authenticator /send screen.component. If I manage to do that one right, we should have send screen component. So we've imported it. Now we need to include it in the declarations array. So send screen. So the send screen component is going to be a child of the authenticator. So we don't need to bootstrap it. We only have to bootstrap the root components. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And that should then include all of it, those files into the bundle. Next, we're going to go to our authenticator component pug file. Trying to remember why I actually had this open already, but so what I want is to have the send screen basically in Z space to be above everything else. So I'm just going to throw it in at the very end, and I'm going to put it at the same level as the inputs container and the info container, so just inside of the authenticator itself. And again, we use the selector as send-screen. So if I save that, we should actually have it quote unquote on screen. So if I look inside the container, account login, authenticator, so we have the send screen, and inside of that the actual div, and we'll see that it's in the top left up there, and we need to fix that real quick. So to do that, we're going to go back to the authenticator.component.scss file, so the style. And then, so what we need to do is to say position relative on our authenticator. So now the position absolute for our send screen will be relative to the authenticator, not relative to the window. So let's go back. We'll take a look now, and of course we can't see anything because our component has overflow hidden on it. But using the developer tools here, we can see that the send screen is in fact above the authenticator where we're wanting it to be. We'll assume it to be the correct height and width for the moment. So now what we'll do here is I'm going to want to have obviously code within the send screen. So for instance, by the time we're done here, we'll animate it so that it'll appear over the authenticator, then we can hide it, animate it out again. So we're going to want to have reference to the component itself, to the send screen component. And Angular has several different ways of doing it. The one that we're going to use here is basically what they call a ViewChild. So I'm going to go back. Actually, let me close a few things here. We don't need the account authenticator.site.ts file anymore. Don't need that style sheet. And we'll need the component or the template here in a minute. But first I'm going to go into the authenticator.component.ts file. And one of the first things I'm going to do is to import from Angular core a decorator called ViewChild. We're also going to import, I have no idea how I'm deciding to space these things out, but we're going to import the reference to the send screen component, and hopefully we have send screen component. Perfect. So the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to make a field to hold the reference to our send screen component, and I cleverly called it send screen. So let's come down here and do a private read only and underscore send screen. The type is send screen component. We'll set it equal to null to start with. And now we're going to decorate this with the ViewChild decorator. And inside that, we're going to put the send screen as a string here. We'll see what this means here in the end. All right. So now what I want to do is to see that we have the reference, and I'm going to go to the ng after view init method. Come down here to the bottom, and I'm just going to console log the send screen. Save that. Let's go back to the browser. Look at the console. We'll see that the bundle's rebuilding. So we'll twiddle our thumbs here for a moment. It comes up, and this undefined statement is actually it, telling us that it did not find the send screen component. But we know that Angular did something, or attempted to do something, because we set it equal to null, and now it's undefined. So Angular was trying to do something. So what we'll do is we'll come back in here to Visual Studio, and we're going to go back to the authenticator.component.pug. And we're basically going to tell Angular that this send screen here that it's sticking in here is the thing that we want, the reference or the field to be set equal to. And the way that we're going to do that is using a template variable. And for Angular, we use a hash to say this is a template variable, and we'll type send screen. Now, if this is HTML, that's all we need, I believe. But since this is we're doing Pug, the Pug interpreter will complain if it just has send screen. So we'll put the equal and then the empty quotes. So now I'm going to save that, and of course, make sure that this send screen, that is the same as if I go up to the field that we just created, the send screen field is the same as this. So this string here is the template variable. I think I already saved it, so let's go back to the browser, and you can see in the console that instead of undefined, we now have an object. So that part's working. We'll go back to the ng after view init method and get rid of that console log statement. All right, so now we're back to, like I said, our goal is to animate things in this video. So what we need is to go into the send screen component. We're going to need a reference to the DOM that we want to animate as usual. So I guess actually I went to the wrong one. Let's go to the send screen component.pug, so the template. And what we'll do is, as usual, bind to the attribute.id. So we want to give this thing an ID, and we're going to say send screen ID. Probably could just be ID, but whatever. So now we go to the send screen component. So that's trying to bind to a property of the send screen component. So let's go ahead and create that component, or that property. So we'll have public get send screen ID. We need to return a string. I have no idea anymore what this thing stood for. I'm assuming that the ASSP there was supposed to be ASP, but whatever. I have no idea. Pretty sure the CONT here was send screen or send container. I used to call it the send container instead of send screen, but it doesn't matter what we call the ID, as long as we can be relatively sure that it's going to be the only ID with this value. And we're going to need to have a private container and call it HTML, or it's an HTML element, start equal to null. Like I said, this is just a hangover from when I was calling the DOM a send container instead of send screen, but whatever. And now we need to go to and create a constructor. The reason I want this constructor is that actually let's import a few more things. So from Angular core, we're going to need the element ref, and we're also going to need after view init. I guess we don't actually need it, but I'm going to use it anyway. And we are going to say that this thing implements the after view init. We'll take care of the squiggly here in a minute. And we also need to import from the services. We need our DOM reader.service. Back here, DOM reader service. Perfect. So in the constructor here, in the actual constructor, we'll say private read only. And the first one I did was the element ref. So element ref of type element ref and private read only underscore DOM reader of DOM reader service type. So of course Angular will inject those for us. Next thing is we need to actually do the implementing. So we'll say public ng after override. And get rid of that. And this, I'm going to say this container equals this DOM reader dot find child by ID, and we're going to find this element ref dot native element, and the ID that we're looking for, this send screen ID. Next, to use our famous console log statement, this dot underscore container, see that we actually have reference to the DOM element. Save that. Back to the browser, and you can see here that we do in fact have the DOM element reference. Back to Visual Studio here. And get rid of the console log while I'm doing it, while I'm at it. And like I said, what we're doing or planning on doing here is to animate this. So what we'll do is to create another private field, private read only, and call it show hide. Come on. Timing, animation effect timing. And for that timing, I want the animation, so both the show and hide animation, the duration, to be 750 milliseconds. Easing will set equal to ease in out, and fill is forwards. Perfect. So now let's create the methods for hiding and showing. So we'll have a public hide. For this one, this container.animate, and of course 2 objects as arguments, first one being the keyframes again, and the next one being the timing. What we're animating, so we're going to animate the transform. Put that there, get our square brackets for the array, a couple of pairs of quotes, and translate. So we're hiding it, so we want to translate from 0, 0 to the hidden position, which would be 0 minus 100%. So of course for the show, it's going to be very similar. This container.animate, keyframes, just do it while we're at it, transform, brackets. So we're showing it, so we want to translate. We want to go from minus 100% to 0. Well, it's 100% and 0 in the. That's a long day. 0 in the X, minus 100% in the Y. So that's where it's starting, and we want it to come down to 0, 0. Perfect, and this show timing, show hide timing. All right, so now we have the ability to hide and show the send screen, or hopefully we do. We'll find out here shortly. To do it, we're going to go back to the authenticator.component.ts file. And I'm going to want to send it, let's see, let's do login. So we'll go to the login method, which is basically the only one we've been using right now. And what I want to do is, so by the time we're done here, if a user logs in and they log in successfully, basically it means we've set the authentication cookie, and we're going to then, to have the browser realize they're authenticated, we have to cause a redirect or refresh. So we'll redirect at some point to like the home page or something when they log in. So all we really need to care about is in the case of an error from the server. So what we'll do is we'll come down to the error callback method, and we'll say this underscore send screen dot hide. So we want to move it out of the way. And what we want to do now is to show it. So what we'll go to is the onClickSend method, if I can find it. So onClickSend, eventually we'll have, send, if login, register, forgot username, all that. So let's go ahead and just put it at the top here. We'll say send screen.show. All right, now if we go back and we'll look here, we're ready to go, except for the fact that this thing, the send button is disabled, and I don't want to mess around and keep adding or inputting stuff into each of those buttons. So let's just, for the time being, go to our is button disabled method. And we're going to go ahead and just comment out this case so that it returns false for both of them. So let's go back. And now our send button is there. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that we see the animation happen here. And we do. So it animates down. We get the response from the server. It animates back up. Such a beautiful user interface, right? A completely gray screen. But at least we've got it to, we're able to have it animate. Of course, I think that that'll do it for this video. In the next one, we will continue, and we'll actually have the send screen display information, as well as, I think that if we go and actually look, let me, just to remind us here, we talked about it in the intro here, but if if we have valid information, the send screen will come down. I think I might change the artwork here, but we have this check mark animating if it was correct, and a red X, if it was okay, and then a red X if there was an error. So that's what we'll focus on in the next video. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I know that your time is valuable. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button, as well as share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. And once again, thank you, and I will talk to you in the next video.